Hi, everyone. This is Kim Campbell from CircusTalk, and I'm here with our guest today, Antonella Casella, from Australia. You live in Melbourne now, right? And you work at Circus Oz.
Yeah.
Antonella we've interviewed you before. You were really influential in
Working internationally.
Australian circus, being an early co-founder of Rock and Roll Circus. I know you were heavily influenced by Reg Bolton's philosophy and also a founding member of Vulcana Women's Circus. And now you work for Circus Oz, and we're here today to talk to you about your new endeavor with the Circus Arts Hub. Can you tell us, before we dive into that, how is the coronavirus situation in Australia right now? How's everyone dealing with it? How many cases have there been?
Well, I don't know the exact number of cases at the moment. I do know that we've been successfully flattening the curve here. The government has been reasonably prompt at shutting everything down that needed to be shut down. There was a bit of confusion at first. There was couple of sort of messages. There was an attempt to say that you could still go to the hairdresser, but only for half an hour. And then the hairdressers complained. So they said, oh, don't worry, just go for as long as you need to. And then, of course, the next day they just said no hairdressers. So there's been a few funny little events like that, which have been confusing for people. And some people have taken a while to realise how serious it really is, I think. But I think that the reality has really hit home now.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Everyone is self-isolating, and it seems to be working very well at the moment.
That's very nice to know. Well, coming on the heels, especially of all the wildfires recently that happened in Australia, I think it's safe to say that Australia's been through a lot lately. Has the morale of the circus world been affected by all these events, do you think?
Yes, there's an incredible grief for not being able to perform live anymore. It's really, really difficult for performers who not only make their livelihoods, but also their entire sort of sense of self is based on a live connection with their audience. And at the moment, I think the Australian circus community is really feeling that. And yet at the same time, there's been a bunch of people who, possibly because of that, have jumped very quickly into the world of digital circus. As you know, we ran a panel discussion on it just a couple of days ago. And, we have this amazing group called Varietyville that are live streaming in a variety show every Saturday night. And it's absolutely brilliant. It's almost like the Australian circus community meets LNL. It's so much fun. And you can see all the audience up the top, and they have moments at the end where one audience member connects with their sister in Austria that they haven't seen for 10 years. And then they go back to the live action, which usually something goes wrong because the Zoom is doing something weird, or the person's not suddenly in the room because they've gone to make a cup of tea. But they still manage to have actual fantastic circus acts in the middle. I think Mario, I don't know if you remember Mario, the queen of the circus. He does a fantastic juggling act to a Queen song, which he used to perform in La Clique. And I watched him do it live in his living room, but he also had the video showing of the La Clique fully theatrical version next to him. And he played with that. And he pretended that he had electronic nodes on himself, and he was pretending that his live action was being copied on the screen, even though it was just a film of his actual act. And it was hilarious because we all knew that.
Yeah.
And he's a great juggler as well. So lots of brilliant live feed coming up, and, people putting their shows full length up on Netflix to sell, so you can buy a circus show and watch it online live. So there's been a lot of really, quick reactions to keep connected with our audiences, I think, which is what it's about. Nobody wants to give up the live show, but we can't do it at the moment. And so that's what we're doing in the meantime.
It seems like there's a lot of rapid adapting to the situation, which is brilliant. And I think that does speak to the nature of an artist, that they are going to work with what they have, and it's going to be a new kind of thing or a different kind of thing. That was one of my questions for you, is how are people adapting? But I think you just did an amazing job of explaining that without me even asking it. So that's great. So you started the Circus Arts Hub, and you told me you put the website together and the structure of it in just like 3 weeks. So is it safe to say that idea has been brewing with you for a while? And where did you get the idea?
It hadn't been brewing. It was literally me in the backyard weeding the garden and starting to think, what can we do as artists during this time with our creativity? You know, how can we use our creativity? And I'd seen in Australia, there's a fantastic page for all artists called Australian Arts Amidst COVID-19. And there were a lot of people going on there talking about how they would be happy to babysit or be a labourer, and now there's a new website called Arts Tasker, where people are listing all their alternative skills that are more necessary in the current climate. And so as artists, they're selling their other services. But I was sort of thinking, what else can we do? What can we do that really focuses on what we really bring to the community, which is our creativity? And I started thinking, it started out being an idea that we would create little 2-minute videos about how we create our work to share our creative process with each other. Yeah. And then as I started calling my colleagues and my friends to see if they thought that was a good idea. And with each person, the idea just sort of developed and new layers added, and it just sort of very quickly developed into this idea of having an online creative hub that was just like a real circus hub, people talking about how they make their work and having panel discussions and sharing resources. And then I was very lucky to connect with a colleague who happens to be an award-winning photographer and is also a web designer. And so if you look on the About page of the website, you'll see all his circus photos running along the bottom. They're absolutely beautiful. So he's also won international awards and been in international media. He did an amazing series called Drag Formation, which ended up in the international media. Such beautiful imagery. They were photos of drag artists pre and post makeup next to each other. Beautifully shot, beautifully lit. So I connected with him, and so we were able to collaborate on the website. And it's, I think it looks beautiful myself.
Yeah, the website is beautiful design. What are some other features of it that tell us a little bit about it? You talked about panels, you talked about the videos and the resources. Is there a resource page?
There's a resource page, yes, and that will grow. I mean, if anything, my core staff also includes, the company's core staff also includes Sebastian Hunter, who is a performance teacher at NICA and a circus director. And the three of us all have a lot of access to resources. Of course, CircusTalk is on there, and we're trying to get some of the new online resources that are coming up on there. But I think the core idea that we've yet to really explore is the idea that anyone in the world can now book a private consultation with one of our featured circus artists for a fee. So, if you're a young artist in, I don't know, Chicago, but you've always wanted to work with someone from Australia whose work you admire, maybe you're Ron from Circa, who's just about to come on to the website as a featured artist, you can contact us and arrange for a half an hour to start with. It could be a mentoring session. It could be a creative development. It could just be a sounding board. It could be to find out what it's like to work at Circa. It could be to find out what you have to do to get into Circa. But you can apply to us, and if we can make the time available for both of you to fit together, you will have a private Zoom consultation with that featured artist.
That's amazing. That's good. And so how many featured artists do you have right now, and do you plan to continue to grow that aspect of it?
I plan to continue to grow that. I think we're going to cap it at about 20 for now. And we've currently got, I'm not sure of the exact number. I'm so terrible at specific figures. 12 or something like that. We're rapidly about to add about 8 to 10 more. Yeah. And then I think we'll leave it at that for a while. I think it's really important. I've carefully selected these artists in consultation with my colleagues in the Circus Arts Hub to have a really great cross-section of the different sorts of leaders, creative leaders in circus that you might want to work with. So, for example, we have Jasmine Straga, who is on the board of many international circus competitions, as well as having many of her young artists end up working in those bigger companies that tour in tents around Europe and so on, with the big, spectacular, almost classical style shows. So So you could meet with her to learn about how to style your act to be suitable for that market. So she's sort of got that speciality. And then we've got Deborah Batten, who is just been an absolute innovator for 20 years in the art form, and is now making really interesting feminist circus that is very spoken word focused, which is quite unusual, you know. And then we've got Samuel from Seven Fingers and Yaron from Circa. We have Sosina Wagayu, who's been an international leader in setting up a circus school in Ethiopia that now provides circus artists for major companies all around the world. So we've got a mix of really great creatives and really great creative producers. We've got Scott Maidment, who produced Blanc de Blanc and Limbo, and the Garden of Unearthly Delights he produces in Adelaide. A lot of his work ends up in the Wonderground and Underbelly in Edinburgh, so he's available. So we've got a very interesting and eclectic mix, but I think it covers a very good sort of broad range of how you might create circus.
Yeah, definitely. And who are your creative collaborators with the Hub?
So there's Zeb, who also works at NICA as the performance director. So he is basically running a series of panel discussions called Circus Futures. And the first one is actually this coming Tuesday at 8 a.m. Australian time. If you look on the website, you'll be able to figure out what time it's on in other parts of the world. And he's going to be interviewing Gypsy from Seven Fingers, and he's going to be interviewing Yaron from Circa, and he's also interviewing an artist who does a lot of work in collaborating with dance and circus, who's based in Montreal also. And he's going to be talking to them about the sort of the possibilities and challenges of working in the cross art form space. Gypsy's done a lot of opera, and Gypsy's done more musical theatre. Yaron has worked with opera companies and major symphony orchestras, and so it's sort of about that particular creative process and how you navigate that.
Yeah, it's very popular nowadays. So
Zeb, and then sorry, I haven't Zeb. So then there's Aaron, who's the photographer and web designer, but he's also an international aerial coach as well, and an aerial artist himself, and he has a lot of international connections to various circus schools and circus companies as well. And we have a manager, Ali, who also is a circus artist, but is also a very experienced owner of an agency which works with artists and selling performances in the corporate sector and in the education sector. So she's going to be our artist liaison.
Oh, okay. That's excellent. I wonder, this is all amazing. And I think about how we're all reacting, and there's a lot of online content now because we really have no other choice. And it's good in many ways, but are there limitations to like the digital circus ring, and how might it change circus in the future when we return to being able to perform live? Do you think it will maintain this level of collaboration and online participation?
Well, I hope that the type of work that the Circus Arts Hub is doing, I think, will have a life well beyond self-isolation, because it's not replacing the live performance in any way. We're not creating live shows. We're not streaming live shows. So I actually think I could have, created this company 10 years ago. I wish I had. So I think it has a great deal of potential to continue, I think. Who knows? With all of the digital streaming and the live performance, I think it's a really interesting new market, because I think it means you can share your work internationally in a different way. So I think what we don't know yet is what will happen when live performance comes back and how those two things will interact, because I don't think the digital sphere will therefore disappear. I mean, there are many artists like Matt Ricardo, who we spoke to in the last panel, who has been augmenting his live performance career with all sorts of digital content, recorded shows, TED Talks, little vlogs about what he reckons about different aspects of the variety community. So I think the live streaming will stay, actually, and I think what will happen is a lot of smaller companies will have built a bigger audience based on that than they had before, and then I think that will augment their physical touring possibilities, because they'll be able to build audiences in places before they physically go to them. And I think that's an interesting way to think about it as well. So, but at the moment, everyone's at home, awake with 12 hours a day where they can watch digital streaming, and that is going to change. So the amount of content people are able to consume is obviously going to change.
Yeah, but I like your optimistic view about how it could, in a way, like feed the art form. And it's true. Even film could, filming circus and making it more available to people everywhere could become more of a popular thing in the future. And I think this could help feed that as well. That's
Yeah.
So is the Circus Arts Hub limited to the Australian circus world? I mean, I know that you're obviously
not even a little bit. Not even a little bit.
No, okay.
No. All of the panel discussions are scheduled to be international. All of the panelists are international. There are more, by the time I have put the 25 artists on, there will be more artists from overseas on it than from Australia. At the moment, I think it's about 50-50. It's not an Australian Circus Hub, and I will not be constantly posting on the Circus Arts Hub, stuff that is Australian centric. We have other social media as an Australian circus community where we can talk about issues that are pertinent to us. So the Circus Arts Hub will be, following your lead, Kim, and concentrating on things that are interesting and relevant to the international version of the community.
That's wonderful.
Which is an interesting new way to think, because we've always thought so much, well, not you, obviously, but many of us have always thought so much from a, local perspective. So it's quite an interesting mind shift to think about, what's relevant internationally.
It's interesting, though, too, because I hear a lot of artists now saying almost the opposite, that this pandemic is kind of making them consider their local connections more and their local opportunities more, because for a long time possibly movement around might not be, obviously not digitally, but in the real world, flying place to place might not be as common for circus artists as it used to be, maybe for a year or so. So just thinking about that is an interesting idea too. But I
think it's also equally true. I mean, for most of us now, our real life is incredibly local, not just in terms of ourselves not being able to leave the house, but, who we purchase from and who we do interact with, those essential services that we do have to visit. So, yes, our world has become very local. And I think that's another opportunity too for artists to connect. If the next step is that we're not self-isolating, but we are allowed to move around a bit in our local community, I think artists will be very quickly starting to perform in that realm as well. Yeah.
So is there anything else you'd like us to know before we go about Circus Arts Hub?
Well, it's there for everybody to have a look at. And if anybody has any suggestions or feedback about what they think they could see the site developing as, I mean, it's really just in its early days, and every day is a new iteration of it and a new exploration of what it could be. And we'd love people to get involved with helping us develop it.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to explore it more. Thank you, Antonella. It's been fun chatting.
Thanks, Kim, as always.